Okay, Sarah, so Shannon Sharpe and Ochocinco on their late night show, they debated whether, kind of a bizarre debate, but they debated whether Lamar Jackson would have won a Super Bowl if he were to have switched spots with Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City.
And unsurprisingly, Unc didn't mince words, okay? Also, Dolphins wide receiver Tyreek Hill, he wants to see more sponsorship deals for Lamar Jackson, and he even came up with what I think is a pretty good tagline.
Curious to hear what that is. I'm Bobby Trossett alongside my co-host Sarah Ellison. It's Friday, March 1st. Free agency is almost here, and this is your morning Ravens update from Inside the Vault, presented by our friends at Mantis.
So the guys over at PFF, they pieced together a projection contract value for pending free agent star running back Josh Jacobs. We'll take a look at that. And meanwhile, Jadeveon Clowney's agent, he happened to run into John Harbaugh at the Combine in Indianapolis, and we'll tell you about the conversation they had about the soon-to-be free agents.
He doesn't want any part of training camp, don't forget that. But plus, in this episode's prospect profile, as we get ready for the NFL draft, we'll take a look at Penn State edge rusher and Maryland native who grew up a Ravens fan by the name of Chop Robinson.
Yeah, we have all of that and more coming up. So thank you for waking up with the Morning Vault, where you get the most important Ravens news and our opinions in about 30 minutes. Let's just jump right in. You teased it pretty well between Shannon Sharpe and Chad Ochocinco talking about what things would look like if we had Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes and, hey, even Joe Burrow play musical chairs with their different squads. And, yeah, let's just get right into it.
If I took Patrick Mahomes and put him on Baltimore, how good do you think they would be?
Holy shit.
Why you say that?
Because he's
Lamar had that team. You told me the Baltimore Ravens, top to bottom, had the best roster in football. So why are you saying holy shit?
Because
holy poop.
I mean, it would be nice. You take Lamar Jackson and put him in the Chiefs, you get the same thing. But go ahead.
Are you serious?
Yeah, ain't nothing wrong with Lamar. Lamar is dynamic. Lamar is dynamic in his own right. Obviously, you would have to.
If I put Lamar on Kansas City, they win in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, offensively, there would be a different offensive dynamic. It would be a different offensive dynamic. You have a great defense. You still got Spags. You got Andy Reid. Who knows? Listen. Stay with me now. Lamar Jackson and Todd Monken had a great year together.
Yes.
Can you imagine Lamar Jackson and Andy Reid? Boy, picture that. You talk about Picasso. You thought Picasso was creative in what he did? Now imagine goddamn Andy Reid and Lamar Jackson. Come on now.
So you said it's not Patrick Mahomes, it's Andy Reid.
No, I'm saying no, because he's great. He would be great where there are 32 teams. There are 31 other teams outside of the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes can go on the other 31 teams, and he will be a difference maker because of who he is, because of the skill set that he has.
Is he better in Cincinnati's offense than Joe Burrow? Because that's the question. When I pose these questions to you,
right? I'm
asking you, are they better or worse? So if I take Lamar and put him in Cincinnati.
But then you know what? Look, you put him in Cincinnati, the offense has to change completely based on the type of quarterback we have. Everything changes. So we don't know. It's a hypothetical, but again, there's a certain type of offense that Lamar runs and a certain type of offense that Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow runs. It's completely different based on the style of quarterback we're talking about. You know that.
So if I
like it. I like the dynamic because you're naming the cream of the crop when it comes to NFL quarterbacks.
But
their styles of play are different, and it's all on preference and based on who you like.
But that's my point.
Yes, sir.
I'm saying cream of the crop in the preparation that it takes to become cream of the crop. Right. I believe in order to become that, you have to do what others won't or can't. And sometimes you got to do both.
Och is sweating. Do you see that?
Ocho's totally sweating.
So you found this, so you start us off.
All right. Well, first off, I don't know how I didn't edit that. There were some bigger curse words there. So
on the back end, I'll make sure that it's.
I appreciate
nobody's going to hear it. Nobody's going to hear what you and I just heard, and your face was hilarious. I'm watching.
Oh, did you see my face? I was like, I forgot.
Your face was so good because you were so mad at yourself. I'm like, no, I'm cleaning that up, partner. I got you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. So first things first, it is not crazy, okay, for somebody like Shannon Sharpe to be like, whoa, are you sure that if you put Lamar and KC and Patrick Mahomes in Baltimore, that for sure Lamar would still beat Patrick Mahomes. It's not crazy to still say, hey, I believe in Patrick Mahomes because, and I'm glad he clarified with this because it could be implied that it's like, are you saying Andy Reid made Patrick Mahomes? And he's like, no, that's not what I'm saying. So I'm glad he said that. So it's not crazy to be like, ooh, could it still be Patrick Mahomes? Or would Lamar get, like, it's more that he says it with such disrespect. So when Ochocinco is like, yeah, I think he would win Super Bowls in KC. And he's like, are you serious? Like, just thinks that it's like a ridiculous proposition that maybe, just maybe, Lamar Jackson might perform better with perhaps one of the best offensive minds in football in the last at least couple decades. I mean, he did it in Philadelphia, went to NFC Championship games. And I believe he did it with McNabb there, right? And so it's like, is it crazy to think that Lamar would benefit from a offensive-minded play caller? Like, play calling does matter. And so, like, it's not that I hate that he still thinks that Patrick Mahomes might be winning if he came to Baltimore, because at least in 2023, I agree with Ochocinco. I think the Ravens had the better roster. I think they had a better roster than KC. And while I feel like everybody played poorly, or most everybody played poorly, I still think the number one thing that happened in that game was the coaching, was the identity, was abandoning the identity. So, like, it's just hilarious to me that he won't even give, like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe Lamar might benefit from having an offensive play caller. Whereas in Baltimore, essentially the Ravens have kind of admitted, like, we're going a different direction. Like, they got rid of Greg Roman, who was all run. And then they bring in Monk in to marry the run game with a passing game better. And so in some ways, it's like the direction where you dove all the way in, you're saying was wrong because you're going a different direction now. And even John Harbaugh talked about, even from the combine, how, like, hey, it was just year one and we just did baby steps. Well, yeah, under this offense, but this was year 6. And yep. I don't think you needed to reinvent yourself in year 6 if he had been with Andy Reid the whole time. So anyway, like that's just the point. Now, with Lamar and Andy Reid together, do I think they could win Super Bowls? Absolutely. But do I think it would be a cakewalk? No, because it's still Patrick Mahomes and it's still the Ravens, who's a solid, super solid franchise. And then it's also intriguing to think, well, what about Lamar with Jamar Chase and Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins? Like, that's also intriguing. Like, it's a fun kind of exercise, but why does it have to be crazy to think that Lamar might succeed more with Andy Reid? I don't agree with that with Shannon Sharpe.
And that's sort of the crux of all this, right? Yeah. His immediate reaction, almost as if he was triggered by Ocho. I think we can all agree that outside of Baltimore, Lamar Jackson would better 31 other teams around the league. He would make 31 other teams around the league better. The reason why
equal in Kansas City's case.
Right, because they haven't gotten to where Kansas City has gone repeatedly throughout the last several years. What I hate about the argument, what I hate about the debate, is that there have really only been a select few examples in NFL history of quarterbacks who have proven that they are interchangeable. Tom Brady comes to mind, winning in New England, right? Then going down to Tampa Bay. I know Matthew Stafford didn't win the big one in Detroit, but he proved, hey, I had a lot of success with Detroit statistically, but look, I was able to go win the big one in LA. Proved he was interchangeable. But there are, like, it's almost as if they are outliers. And so to sit here and just assume that Lamar Jackson would have been able, with a different system, like Ocho was getting at, right? Different system, different offensive line, different playmakers around, and just make that change overnight. Maybe that wasn't the premise of the debate. They're just talking big picture. I just hate it. It's like, we'll never know. So we'll never know, and it can't be proven. So it's like,
that's why it's
gonna slight somebody. And Lamar, of course, ends up getting slighted because he hasn't been to where Patrick has gone repeatedly multiple times yet. We both feel like he can. We both feel like he can with John Harbaugh, with Todd Monken. They were plays away, if not a play away, from being able to do so, or at least go to that game to compete for the big one this year. And so, it's just, but yeah, it's the first time I listened to it. It is that trigger. It's that quick trigger reaction.
Yeah.
That, and honestly, you know what I've come to? I came to a conclusion today at the gym on Shannon Sharpe. and it is this. In my opinion, I think he is a far better interviewer than he is analyst. And in this case, maybe like a personality with Ocho. And here's why. I am about halfway through the Club Shay Shay episode, one-on-one sit down with Johnny Manziel.
Okay.
And the way that Johnny has a respect for the interviewer as a Hall of Famer that Shannon is, the way that he has gotten him to open up throughout this interview, it's one of the most transparent, honest, upfront, all those adjectives interview that I have ever watched. And it makes for really, really good theater. And I think that's because of the way that Shannon has learned to interview. It's obviously the stature that he has. He's bringing on folks that have a ton of respect for him. But I would not be surprised if he ultimately doesn't even have to have any of these mainstream networks, employing him, because what he's doing in that space, in the non-traditional space, which we are in this Club Shay Shay format on YouTube, man, he is exceptional. And I prefer that side of him than I do as an analyst.
It's a different topic for sure. And I haven't watched enough of Shannon Sharpe as an interviewer to really compare it as an analyst. I will say this though, man, he's pretty prime time when it comes to being analyst, right? He's on First Take, ESPN, prime time. Like it's not prime time because that's at night, but it's like at a prime time for talk shows, and all that kind of stuff. And so I think while I disagree with him with it, part of like what I'm saying with him being so extreme and being like, what? Like, are you serious? Why would you even bring that up? It's actually that makes him shoot up in his career as an analyst, because he does make strong takes. And so while I disagree with what he's saying about Lamar, it makes him compelling, and it's why he's on TV. So it's hard to say that, but again, I can't compare it because I haven't watched enough of the interviews. Anyway, staying on the topic of Lamar, did you have anything else?
Just quickly, I want to get Matt to Sleep in before we get deeper into the conversation. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Matt to Sleep. We are both sleep mask wearers. Some of Sarah's kids have become sleep mask wearers, courtesy of Matt to Sleep, and they offer a 100% blackout for a deeper sleep. There's C-shaped eye cups for unbeatable side sleep comfort. 0 pressures applied to your eyelids or lashes. There's advanced materials included, ventilation for unmatched breathability. And I just wanted to give you guys an idea, because we are going to be raffling this sucker out. I haven't even told you this yet, Sarah. This guy right here, the Manta Sleep Mask Silk.
That's my daughter's favorite.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. So she knows.
She knows.
And your son definitely knows too, because he's got the one with Bluetooth built into it. So
yeah,
anyway.
Well, I was telling you, I live in Columbus, and there were tornadoes touching down here the other day, and there's sirens everywhere. Okay. Because we're part of Tornado Alley or whatever.
Yeah.
And he did not wake up because he had the audio on, which is good. He didn't need to wake up. Those sirens go on all the time, and I would go get him if it was something. But he does get up because in that audio, his phone's still connected and the alarm goes off. So he wakes up immediately with the alarm. But like, he slept right through the tornado stuff, and I'm glad they did, because the tornadoes weren't close to us, that they go off anyway. But I was like, dang, that sleep mask is doing a job.
Which is almost scary. It's kind of scary in a sense if you need them, but like it puts you into this cocoon. It really does. And he's been experiencing that. The best part is if you are a subscriber of the Vault, whether you're in the audio only space or on YouTube, if you use the code VAULT10, you'll get 10% off your next purchase. Again, all that information can be found in the show notes below. And thank you to Matt to Sleep for sponsoring this episode. I cut you off, so continue. Sorry about that.
Oh, yeah. So I just wanted to stay on the topic of Lamar Jackson, but it's a different topic. So Tyreek Hill went on the Punchline podcast with Marlon Humphrey, and they kind of got on a random conversation about Lamar, but very specifically, which people kind of touch on here and there. We'll talk about it on the other end, but Tyreek wants to see Lamar in more sponsorship deals. He needs to see Lamar plastered more all over billboards and commercials. Let's take a listen to that.
Lamar Jackson deserves more than he's got right now as far as like brand deals and stuff. I want to see him on the side of a billboard or something, on a fat billboard or somewhere that says Lamar Jackson, built for speed. Built for speed. Like, my son loved Lamar Jackson. If Lamar Jackson came out with some cleats, bro, I would be the first one in line to get those for my son. He can be the face.
He comes in with a lot of Starbucks. He needs a Starbucks deal. I don't think Lamar's going to give us our cut, though.
He not.
He's going to be like, what does that have to do with you? I'm like, I set up the deal. It's like,
nah, that's what we tell the Starbucks dude. Say, look.
Cut us on the side.
I feel like you're low-key pitching Lamar to come play in South Florida, return home.
No.
Okay.
I would. No,
You don't want to steal Marlon's guy.
Nah, we already got a real good quarterback. Our quarterback is real good. Real good. Capital R, capital G. Real good.
Jack tried.
Sure he had his quarterba's back.
Jack tried. Jack tried to bait him, didn't he?
He sure did. Tyreek's too media savvy for that. So first of all, love the tagline. Like Lamar Jackson built for speed. Okay. I'm all here for it. I've heard a lot of people ask this question, and it is intriguing to me why Lamar isn't, it's not like he doesn't have any sponsorship deals. I know that we've seen Oakley, and I went to like search it. He's actually sponsored by a lot of people, but it's just not like big time. Like he's not like Patrick Mahomes where it's like plastered everywhere or whatever. So about this time last year, and this is before Lamar had it was like in the middle of talking about whether he's going to get his new contract. And of course, Mike Florio is always talking about how he needs to have an agent. So I remember about this time last year, and I'm bringing this up for a specific reason. And Mike Florio had said on the show, like he said that what is it? Yeah, he had a massive shoe deal fall through, and it was because he didn't have an agent. Okay. So Lamar responds to that with the classic LeBron James meme that's like looking up and it's like, what are you talking about type thing, right? So then Andrew Hawkins, he kind of chimes in and he writes, are we really supposed to believe that Lamar Jackson, human video game, the best running QB in the history of the NFL, couldn't get a shoe deal with any brand if he wanted? He goes, I had a shoe deal, LOL. Like, holy bleep. Come on, man. And then has a bunch of laughing things. This is my point. Listen, this might be to some people a dumb question, but Lamar Jackson is such a non-traditional person and he's so into building up his own brand. Like he has his own clothing line. He's got the new era clothing line, all this kind of stuff. I want somebody to ask Lamar if he wants these big sponsorships. Now, it seems like to just like 99% of the world out there to be like, are you kidding me? That's millions upon millions. And we know Lamar said that he wanted to be like LeBron and be a billionaire, right? And so this is like a pretty nice avenue to get there. And he is a human video game, as Andrew Hawkins is saying, like he could have one if he wanted one. And so that's my question. Does Lamar want it? I just need somebody to ask him.
I'd be shocked.
It doesn't make sense to me otherwise.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if at this point he's 6 years into his NFL career. It's like as a two-time
MVP, yes,
two-time MVP, somebody who's changed the game in a lot of ways. Yeah, you'd think that people have been lining up. And I remember when that Mike Florio thing came out a year ago, I was like, what? That's when I began to worry. Even though there were some question marks about the legitimacy of the report, I began to worry for him related to the contract situation that he was in at that time. I was like, is he well equipped for the folks around him with his mother and whoever else helped them from a representative standpoint to get that deal done, which ultimately they did. Big congratulations to them. But I remember at the time with the deal kind of being a saga, right? It turned into this like massive cloud over the organization. And I was like, wow, if this deal fell through, if this report's true, what's going on behind the scenes right now? And ultimately that ended up not being a problem whatsoever, obviously.
Yeah, we obviously had that debate a few times. I never had that worry. And I certainly don't think a lack of an agent is what is preventing him from being plastered all over the place. Like,
well, clearly we figured that out now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
A year later, it's pretty clear that there was no room for worry. That's for sure.
So I just want him asked one time, like, is it because he prefers to build up his own brand and doesn't want to, like, he has his own restaurant. Remember, he started what was the gym thing that he and his friend were doing. Like, it seems like, or he's done his own book. It just seems like Lamar likes to build his own stuff rather than endorse somebody else's stuff. I mean, there's a few exceptions, obviously, but I just wonder.
What was it? The entire gym? The entire gym, and then he's got the soul food restaurant, and then
he's got his children's book about dreaming. So, yeah. All right. Anyway, moving on to the next topic. So
we love our rabbit holes.
We do love our rabbit holes.
Especially when we're not on the air. You should see us when we're just having our phone calls, just catching up with one another.
Oh my gosh. Oh, wait. One last thing on Lamar. I tweeted this like days ago, and I'll be very brief about it. But your favorite Twitter guy, Dov, what's Dov's last name?
Oh, Kleiman. We have to even use his name?
I had to because I know it's so
Kleiman. Dov Kleiman, who doesn't show his face on Twitter. I don't even know what he looks like.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, Dov had put out a tweet with these side-by-side stats comparisons between Lamar and Justin Fields. Now, the stats came from ESPN's Get Up show. And I think that's important to point out because I think this is bigger than Dov, even though people were all reaming him. So anyway, they put this side-by-side comparison, and the whole point is to make Justin seem like, hey, he's almost as good as this 2-time MVP, right? And so, or Dobbs tweet said is Fields underrated, and maybe he's just with a bad organization or something like that, or a bad team. And so, of course, a lot of Lamar haters came out and said, no, it's because Lamar's overrated. And so people are having this fight about whether or not Lamar's overrated or Justin Fields is underrated. And then I'm like looking at the stats. I'm like, guys, you guys don't even need to fight about this. Like, look at the stats more closely. Like, this is a bunch of cherry-picked stats that if you look at it, they're just put together in a clever, maybe one would say even shady way to make it seem like Fields is closer than Lamar than he really is. And I'll just run through a couple of them. I could go on for days. But first of all, they take the last 20 games. It's such a random number. Like, they both, I think they had one game difference this last season that they played in. So if you don't want to just say, okay, this season, then go back to the last 2 seasons because they played the exact same number of games the last 2 seasons. Or heck, how about Justin Fields' first 3 seasons to Lamar's last 3? Like, because they played the exact number of games. 20 games is so random, and I'm sure it has something to do with finding the best numbers to make it look like right. That's number one. Number two, when did you ever look at Tom Brady versus Peyton Manning, and the first stat is how many dropbacks they had? Right. Like, why even put that up there? Like, who cares that they have the same number of dropbacks?
The first would be passing yards with those guys. Then they go to touchdowns. Sure. Then they go to completion percentage, and they go on and so forth. You know,
right? And so I get that both these guys will run more than like your traditional statue quarterback, but still, you just look at the numbers and the raw yardage. So then they go to completion percentage, and if you look at that and you round it, it's like 66% to 62%. No, guys, that's a huge difference. I can't look back the last 20 games because that's hard. Like, I'd have to get out spreadsheets and start putting it together. But their last season was close to this. Lamar was number 8 in completion percentage, and Justin Fields was number 30. And the way they compared, though, okay, so then you go to yards per attempt. So why do they use yards per attempt? Well, because if you do raw yards, then Lamar blows away Justin Fields. So, and then if you know anything about stats, 7.8 to 6.8 is a big difference. But if you're not used to looking at these stats, you think it's actually close. It's not. Then the one thing they do show, but try to hide it because they both have the same number of touchdowns, is Fields almost has double the interceptions. Oh, and then, by the way, Fields actually has more rushing yards than Lamar, the raw rushing yards. And so they go to raw numbers because he's actually ahead of that. But if he was behind, they'd probably go back to average, right? And so, like, anyway, you could go on and on and on. I was like, there's no need to argue whether one is underrated or overrated. They're not comparable, like not even close. And so I said in my tweet that it's agenda-driven, but I want to make clear, it's agenda-driven for Fields. There's rumors about him being traded. I don't think this is about trying to make Lamar look bad, even though it did in some ways because people were calling him overrated. I think these stats and the way that they're cleverly put together is more about trying to raise, I think it's agent pushed, maybe even from the Bears, because they want to get, if they're trying to trade Justin Fields, they want to get big value. So you want to make it look like, hey, man, he's right there with with Lamar Jackson, a 2-time MVP. So you guys better get ready to trade big draft compensation to get him.
You're going to see a lot of this type of stuff over the next couple months getting ready for the draft. I mean, there's a lot of things that are happening behind the scenes. We're getting ready for free agency, which is just a matter of almost still weeks. Well, no, days away. So anyway, the new league year coming right up on deck, and a pending free agent star running back that we haven't spoken a ton about because our focus has been on Saquon and Derrick Henry. Josh Jacobs is a guy who's out there, Vegas Raiders running back. And so PFF has a projected contract value of 3 years at $34.5 million, which would be $21.3 million guaranteed and $11.5 million per year. So again, that is just north of what Joel Corey had for Derrick Henry, if I'm not mistaken, right? That was right around 11.
It was 2 years. It was 2 years, 20 million. So 10 million per year. And I grabbed this because I wanted to get your opinion on
10 million per year. Okay.
Yeah, 10 million per year. And I know that you said you would do that deal. And I said I wouldn't, but now I want to see how far you'd go. Would you go for $11.5 million? I just want to know how far you're willing to go.
How far I'm willing to go. I mean, I'm open to the idea of it, but I don't know about this. See, this was more so for, and this is no disrespect to Josh Jacobs, but this was more about the fit that would come with Derrick Henry. So it wasn't just like,
so
hey,
you're
I'm willing to be a spender here. All right. Yeah.
You're trying to spend on the credit card here. We know you. No, I'm just joking.
Listen, the last couple of weeks, as you guys know, it's been a big spending moment for me. The last couple of weeks, just getting in my new place. My mom's been like taking my credit card. No, I'm not in like this crazy, momentum spending spree right now, but yeah, so not quite.
Okay, just wanted to check in with you there. All right.
How about what did Harbs have to say about?
Okay. Yeah, so John Harbaugh did an interview. Sorry, there was some technology problems there. I got a little bit thrown off, but John Harbaugh did an interview with Garrett Downing, and like in the middle of it, he kind of threw in this little tidbit about Jadeveon Clowney.
I just ran into the agent for Jadeveon Clowney, just walking in the street, and he grabbed me, and he said, "I said, what do you?" I told him I love him. I said, "What do you think? How'd he do this year?" And he goes, "This is the first year he's ended the season happy."
That says something right there.
That says so much right there. It says so much for everything, for everybody in the organization. So maybe we can get him back. We're going to try, along with Kyle and a lot of other guys. So, yeah, I'll be rooting for everybody.
Wow.
I would not hate a return with Jadeveon Clowney. I mean, and that lines up with Jadeveon. Remember that we had like a couple clips where he like went up to Eric DeCosta and he's like, "You're running a pretty nice ship around here."
His time here.
He loved his time here. Now, Bobby, let's think back. Okay, so 9.5 sacks he had. What a bargain the Ravens got. 1 year for $2.5 million. There is no way, similar to what Kyle told me, even though I didn't put it the correct way he wanted me to on Twitter, basically felt like he deserved a pay raise. 1 year for $2.5 million. Jadeveon Clowney, 9.5 sacks, definitely deserves a pay raise. Now, what PFF is projecting is 1 year, $9 million. They also had in here that he recorded his highest pressure rate in 2023, his highest pass rush win rate, and most total pressures in a season.
Yeah.
So
he's deserving of that money.
I do think he could go out and get 1 year for about $9 million.
Oh, he's deserving of that money. Yep.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many other guys are projected ahead of him and even after him for a lot more money.
Right.
So,
and I'm sure Van Noy will be south of that, but still he's deserving of that money too. Not the 9, but like, well, I would imagine Van Noy is going to be just south of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just, are the Ravens going to have that money? Are they going to have that money?
Yeah. What position, what kind of positional value will Eric DeCosta end up pulling trigger on? Does he believe in the edge rusher? Well, that's kind of a perfect segue, right? To talk about the Penn State edge rusher, who is a Maryland native, Montgomery County, and grew up a Ravens fan, Chop Robinson. Daniel Jeremiah had a lot to say about him. And when you stack it up against Yannick Ngakoue, former Ravens pass rusher, former outside linebacker, had a cup of coffee in the grand scheme of things with the Ravens. Was it just a season? I guess it was just a season for Yannick. But anyway, he's a former Maryland standout.
It did not work out well.
The measurables, it did not. The measurables, and that, unfortunately for Yannick, that's kind of been the case at almost every one of his stops in the NFL.
Yeah.
The measurables are super similar here. Ngakoue ran a 4.75 40. Robinson, in DJ's mind, is going to run much faster this week, but it's the same body type.
Yeah, so he's got they're both 3.5 inch arms. They're both about 250 pounds. They're both about the same height. And so when you're looking at body type, it's the same. But Daniel's point is that Chop is just
a dude,
at least faster. So the Ravens website put together, they put up 5 edge rushers you should know. I do think Chop could fall to the Ravens around 30. I mean, he could also go, and Daniel Jeremiah, I'm going at 28 to the Bills, but he could be there. He doesn't have a ton of sacks in 2023. 10 games, 15 tackles, 4 sacks, 7.5 tackles for loss. I went and watched some of his highlights. He definitely seems to knock the ball away when he gets to those quarterbacks. Yep. So he is a native of Maryland, just like Ngakoue went to Maryland, right?
Yeah,
Yannick
Yannick went, College Park guy.
But Chop started at Maryland and then he transferred over to Penn State. And so here's Matt Miller from ESPN. Here's what he had to say. Robinson is a solid edge setter, even though he is undersized. He has shown good first step quickness and hand usage that converts to production. He had a pressure rate of 18%, 9 tackles for a loss, and 4 sacks last season. Teams will be split on Robinson's best NFL position, and some scouts will wonder whether he can be a 3-down edge player, but at the very least, he will be an early impact edge rusher. So that's something just to keep your eye on. And Chop did talk about the Ravens. He was on with Mike Florio and Chris Sims on PFT Live, and here's what he had to say when they asked him, who would you most like to sack in the NFL?
Who's the quarterback that you can't wait to put on his ass?
I would say Lamar Jackson. I'm from Maryland, so seeing Lamar all the time just run around, I definitely want to sack Lamar Jackson because he's the hardest quarterback to sack.
Right. You're a Ravens fan? You grow up a Ravens fan?
Yeah, I grew up a Ravens fan.
Yeah,
I'm not too far from Baltimore, so Ravens always been in my blood.
Right, okay.
Good luck, Chop. Good luck, Chop. Easier said than done getting Lamar on his arse.
Well, and that's why a lot of people name him, right? Because it's like if you actually do, then that says something because it is so difficult, as he said.
Hey, I love it. Set the bench high for yourself. Come on now. Try to get him down. Not many have been able to. So
anyway, we'll continue with those like prospect highlights. We'll do that from time to time leading up to the draft.
Yep. And then I'm gonna try and track down Mel Kiper. I know we're gonna have on, as many draft analysts as we can once we get into April and whatnot.
All right, so just 2 quick hits here. Browns general manager Andrew Berry. He was at the combine and he was talking about how the Browns are pitching to the league a rule change that I like a lot. And it's moving back the trade deadline in the middle of the season. Here, he's explaining some of the reasons for that.
Year. Number 3, we wanted to retroactively correct the fact that the trade deadline never moved when the season expanded to 17 games. And then really number 4, if at some point in the future the regular season expands to 18 games, we wanted to be proactive in terms of the positioning for the trade deadline. One of the things that we found, Tony, or I'll touch on 2 parts. You're probably getting more than you bargained for here, but I'll touch on 2 parts here. If you look at us compared to the other major sports leagues, if you look at their seasons by like calendar days or games played, baseball and basketball, they have the trade deadline at when 65% of the games are played. Hockey's at 78%. Currently, we're at 45%. Our proposal would move it to about 55% of the games played.
Yeah, I feel like it definitely needs to move back to at least, it's got to move to the second half of the season, right, Bobby? I mean, I just feel like teams would be much more willing to do trades because they know where they are. Like they know if they still have a chance. And so like he's saying he's proposing it to be after 55% is played. Well, I mean, I would like it better if it were like one of those other leagues, if it was like 60%, because some teams are like, I don't know, we still might have a chance, yada, yada, yada. By the way, John Harbaugh is in favor of this. He said back in November, it would be better for players. It would be better for the players and the teams and for the fans. To me, it's good for the game as long as it doesn't compromise the fairness and integrity. It'd be great. So I'm interested to see what the competition committee says on that.
Hit that last quick hit because J.K. Dobbins has posted his first health status in a video form. So hit that while I bring this in for everybody.
Oh, I'm excited to see that. All right. So I was just the Ravens Twitter account put up some memories, if you will, from last year's 2023 combine and some of the things that had happened there. And this one, Keaton Mitchell, 40-yard dash. He ran that thing in 4.37 seconds. Oh, Bobby, I'm so mad he got hurt. Like there's so many plays where he's just running out people. He he'd get to the edge and turn the corner and people couldn't catch him. Oh,
Yep.
I wish he was there in the AFC Championship game. Maybe they would have ran it. I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't have mattered because maybe they wouldn't have run it. But one other thing, they looked back at Trenton Simpson, 40-yard dash. This is a big dude. He ran it in 4.43 seconds, second among linebackers. I'm very curious. I should have looked this up. I wonder how that compares to what Patrick Queen did. Because one of the things that was nice about Queen, I sang it in past tense, which hurts, but I do think he's moving on. But he just had so much speed, and he could go sideline to sideline, and I do think that's why Trenton might still fit in well there. Not that it would be immediate, because how long did it take Patrick to really get to be who he was in the end?
Several years.
But don't sleep on Simpson's speed. Okay, what do you got on J.K. Dobbins?
Well, it's perfect timing just because, we obviously want this episode to be as fresh as possible for you. So JK, who of course is coming back from the Achilles setback that he suffered on September 10th, just posted the first video of his ongoing rehab. And this is how he's looking right now. All right, so for our audio-only audience, JK is running at full speed. He was seen on the treadmill. He was seen on turf. He was seen on just, running full speed, and it doesn't look like there's any hiccups or hitches, which is what we saw prior to that scope. Remember that a couple of years ago when he tried to come back from the injury 2 years ago? He just didn't have that acceleration, that burst, that breakaway speed, and so
would you say that was full speed? It felt like a lot of jogging to me.
Maybe
on the treadmill. JK's full speed. Jogging.
We definitely didn't just see JK's full speed, so I misspoke there. But to me, it felt like not aside from the treadmill, it felt like it was more than a jog. But yeah, it wasn't at his full speed.
And do we know? Just because I was looking super close to it, I was just trying to Google it. I'm like, which was it? His left Achilles?
I gotta check that.
Because when I was looking at him, I was like, the reason why I asked is because when I was watching him, when they had the exact view right out of his calves from behind on the treadmill, I was like, oh, that left leg's still looking a little bit skinny compared to the right. But maybe I'm just seeing things I wanted to look up, but I'm not seeing as I Google if it was his left or right Achilles.
Yeah, but
I'm just saying Achilles. Anyway,
but
regardless. Even though I'm pushing back on the full speed idea, and even though I feel like it looked like his left calf was still skinny, which is what you would expect coming back from Achilles, it's February, right? It's not like September. So he still got, well, I guess it's March 1st, but you got all of March, April, May, June, July. I mean, he's still got 5-6 months before the season starts. So
precisely.
It's just like, hey, while you guys are at the combine looking at a not so deep running back draft, but also even more than that, with free agency coming up, this is why we're seeing this. Free agency starts in a couple weeks. What's the date on it? Is it the 13th?
You said the 11th was tampering, legal tampering period, and then 13th new league year.
Yeah, so this is definitely a well-planned video to be like, don't forget about me.
Oh.
And while they probably saw the same things I saw, and probably more, prospective teams, it's still like, okay, it's February, and that's not looking too terrible.
No doubt. The caption, 5.5 months out with an eye emoji, hashtag La Vuelta, the return in Spanish. All right, JK.
That's
there
funny.
You have it.
You were just saying the other day that you wanted to have a JK Dobbins
I literally just tweeted that, and thank you, JK, for returning the favor.
See, it's all for you, Bobby. It was all for your tweet.
Thank you, JK. I know you got to go. Shout out to a couple of our OG patrons who are supporting us through Patreon this month here inside the channel. Rick Henry, Matt DiMaggio, thank you both. And if you guys are interested in doing the same out there for a monthly shout out or any other tier that we offer on Patreon, visit patreon.com/Ravens Vault podcast. All that information can be found in the show notes below. Special thanks to Manta Sleep for sponsoring our channel and this specific episode. And for my co-host and partner, Sarah Ellison, I'm Bobby Trossett signing off from this Friday morning vault. The next time you hear from us, make sure you mark your calendars here. Will not be 5 a.m. Eastern on Monday. It's going to be a 12 noon live stream. Some experimenting, some tinkering going on this offseason. We'll share more on that coming up next week.